My name is Lynn McQuillan. I'm with the Employee Wellness Center. And today we're going to talk about posture, how our body can benefit from good postural alignment, not only physically like our muscles and our bones, but also even with our digestion and energy, our breathing, and some things like that. So we're going to look at some ways to have good posture throughout our day, looking at our different daily activities, what our environment might be at work. Some of us are seated, some will be standing at counters, and some possible stretches and movements that we can do throughout our day just to kind of keep the blood flowing and keep ourselves in a good postural alignment as much as possible, as well as look at some things that we can do even lying on the floor, maybe at the end of the day when we get home and we have a little more time and a little more privacy to really address our own personal individual needs. All right, so we're going to get started with some seated alignment. So the first thing I want to just mention is the spine is our main area of the body that we need to be concerned with when we're talking about our posture. Pretty much our legs and our arms just kind of come out as extensions of that. So when we are seated, our pelvis, these two big kind of round bowl-shaped bones, should be so set so that these bones located kind of right here in our anatomy, it's just hard for you to see that when I'm poking at my buttocks, should be in the chair and should be directly underneath you. So these are also known as our sitting bones. Often what happens though is that most people are sitting just behind those bones, all right? So when we sit behind those bones, we change the dynamics of the base of the spine and then the rest of the spine, because the foundation of the spine is at the base here at this bone, the sacrum, and in what we know as the lumbar spine. So if we are not sitting directly on top of these bones, we can't get the space, the good space that we need in the base of the spine so that it can sit and bring itself into its optimal alignment for good posture. So on our sitting bones versus just behind, you can even see how the spine loses the ability to hold the natural curves when we go behind that. We come into more of what's known as a C curve, okay? We want to have those sitting bones directly underneath us. Many of us have chairs that have a lumbar support, so it has this natural curve for us to have that supported with our back. If we don't, we can bring in some objects like these types of lumbar pillows. If we don't have a pillow, these you can find online pretty inexpensive, like under $20. If you don't have something like that, even taking something as simple as just a towel and rolling it and placing it behind our back. And that way we can adjust it to whatever size we need, again, based on our body's needs and alignment. So we want to be sitting directly on top of those sitting bones, have some support through the low back so that we can get the upper body curves in, and then optimally have the head stacked over top of the shoulders. If we have armrests, we can adjust those so that we can relax the arms and the shoulders can be relaxed. If we don't have armrests, that makes it a little more challenging. So then you might need to adjust your chair at your desk. If you have a desk job where you have to be using a computer or something like that, you'll want to adjust your chair then so that you can have good alignment for your arms so that we're not straining through the shoulders. The other thing to consider then is based on how you have to adjust your chair for your desk, your feet, you can see even for me, if I'm in a good alignment here through my legs, my feet don't touch the floor. So I may have to bring in a box or something else to put under my feet to elevate them so that I'm taking the pressure out of my legs, kind of hanging from the hip joint and putting strain on my low back, okay? So good postural alignment in our chair. On our sitting bones, some lumbar support so that we can stack the shoulders over top and then the head as much as possible right over top of our ears. All right, so realizing that a lot of you may not have jobs where you are sitting in a chair or at a desk throughout most of the day, and you are perhaps working at a counter surface, just want to make some considerations for our posture when we are at this type of a station. So stepping in, obviously close enough so that when we're doing our work, we can keep that good postural alignment where the hips are under the shoulders and the shoulders are right under the ears, or vice versa, however you want to look at it. But thinking about when we're doing our work here, if we're rounded over, I realize maybe that's something that would need to happen, but making sure that if we are in this posture and we're rounded forward, considering that we're putting strain on the neck, strain on the upper back, the shoulders, and then strain on the low back, just making time in between activities so that we can bring ourselves back up in this upright posture and get some space again so that we don't have that strain, particularly on our low back, and could potentially start to have some disc issues. So another thing to consider when we're standing like this, sometimes standing with our weight equally into both legs can cause some strain on the low back as well. So some options could be to find something, and I'm showing you here with an object that we have at the gym. I realize that you may not have these available to you. Well, you don't have them available at your work, but you may have a box or something low like this that you could stuff with newspaper or something that would make it dense and sturdy, just to elevate your leg and shift the weight to release some of the pressure in your low back. So just an object for you to kind of get your body shifted and make sure you're taking pressure out of the low back for counter work. All right, so we'd like to review some stretches that you could do now to relieve some of the pressure in the back, give the muscles some opportunity to lengthen and move and stretch, increase the blood flow to those areas. So, counter work. If we're standing at a counter and we find that we are starting to have some strain because we have been rounded forward, we want to always consider what would be the opposite thing that we could do to balance out whatever strain we've put on the body. So if we've been rounded forward like this, our head's been forward from our shoulders just a bit forward from our hips, obviously the counter pose for that, or counter movement for that, would be to take it in the opposite direction. All right? So one of the things that we can do is just a simple, easy, gentle back bend. The thing I'd like for you to be cautious about, though, with this is that space that we had in our spine. Where'd my spine go? This bone that comes in between the pelvis, often it's most readily available for folks to put their hands right there on that joint space. That could cause some pain, discomfort, and/or problem. So we want to be careful if we do these standing back extensions that we're actually up here where there's more of a bony surface for safety, and/or down here in the buttocks where what I like to call is the fluffy stuff, and it's safe. So we're going to be careful that if we do any kind of a back extension, that our hands are more placed here on the buttocks, or even up here. We could even open up the hands a bit, but staying away from this triangle area, just for safety. All right, so gentle back extensions, lifting up through the rib cage. So we're going to take the rib cage up and back. This is also different from dropping forward into the pelvis. So yes, this looks like the shape that we want to create, but I want to also caution that when the hips jut forward like this, we are basically, I call it hanging in the joints, so our muscles are not actively engaged to lift us and extend the spine. So this is an energetic lifting, activating the muscles to open and lengthen the front side of the body, which is different from hips going forward. And if you even explore that on your own, you're going to feel that there's some strain in the low back. So you could use the counter as well. Just a little bit of support here to lift and let yourself come forward. You'll notice then if your hips move toward the counter, you've dropped into that space versus lifting and lengthening. Another stretch that you could do here It's just sort of walking away and letting the whole spine release with gravity. So you can just sort of let things lengthen and open and release. And this is a really nice way. The muscles are more just actively lengthening against gravity versus you engaging them to lift up. So this is a really nice way to just stretch the shoulders, and lengthen the back. Okay? And to safely come out of this, because you may not have a strong engagement through the core, I'd suggest you walk one hand back to your knee, the other hand back to your knee, and then bring yourself up. Often injuries happen getting into or coming out of what we call in yoga poses. This is kind of technically a pose. So you want to carefully move yourself into it and carefully bring yourself out. Okay, so we're back in the chair now, and just want to show some easy stretches that we can do. Often if we're in the chair and we do have our good postural alignment through the pelvis, the areas that might be feeling some strain, because probably most of us are working at a desk, would be more from the mid-back up toward our head. So we'd be rounded forward like this. So we may find that we have some strain. Our shoulder blades are kind of pulled apart and off of the back. We could have some strain in the upper back. We could have strain in the neck because we've got that what's known as tech neck. They say that every time your head from your ear over your shoulder is forward 10 degrees, your head starts to weigh almost double. So an average head, they say, weighs between about 8 to 12 pounds. So for every 10 degrees that your head is forward, that weight and strain that you're putting on your neck and your upper back doubles, triples, and so on and so forth. So for this, just taking some time to, if you have, again, something simple like a towel, a scarf, here's like a yoga strap. So even a lot of people just have these types of things. An old strap, maybe a robe strap or something like that. But what you can do is take that, even place it behind your head, and just gently press your head back, press your neck back into that. Gently squeeze your shoulder blades together. And then just play around with that a few times. Just activate those muscles on the back of your neck. So it's, once again, we're not going to just drop into things. We want to actively engage the muscles to lengthen and move. So that's different from, boom, just letting your head hang back there. We're using the towel to give us something to consider moving into and lifting to lengthen the head back, to engage the muscles in the reverse of them hanging forward. All right? So you don't have to have a towel for something like that. You could just use your hands even, softly just place them. So this is different from interlacing and potentially pulling on your neck. We could just place them softly and lift the head and lower. Okay? Once again, if we have some arms, or even if our hands are at our desk, we can just actively squeeze the shoulder blades. So we said if we're forward, you can see these two bones, my shoulder blades look like two little wings on my back. And as we come forward, they pull apart. We just want to pull them back together. So if we're this way, we want to just do the opposite. We just want to squeeze the shoulder blades back toward each other and activate those muscles to pull the bones together. If we find that we're having some mid to low back strain, we can actually just kind of scooch ourselves forward, use our hands for some support, and round over, and just release the whole spine and let gravity work in the opposite direction, and just let the back release with gravity. Carefully coming back up, so considering that, we draw our chin toward our chest, pull our belly in and up, use our arms to assist us push into the legs to bring ourselves back up to a safe postural alignment. Okay? And finally, what we can do is bring in some gentle twists. And this is really nice for kind of moving our digestive organs too, helps with assimilation and digestion. So sitting up nice and tall, we can take the opposite hand to the leg, give ourselves a little twist, come back to center, and then the other way. And it seems very simplistic, but yet it's something this is something just to remind us that just these simple types of movements can help us on many, many different levels. So we've talked a little bit about the muscles and the alignment, but when we have this good alignment, we create space in the cavity, in the torso, to allow our digestive organs to have the space that they need to function at a good capacity, to have things moving through the way they should. When we're sitting tall, we can take deep, full breaths. The lungs and the diaphragm can move, the ribs can expand and fall. We can breathe, oxygenate the blood, and just feel better, really. Also, this is how we can tap into the parasympathetic nervous system, that rest and digest instead of the fight or flight. If we're crumpled over like this, either in a chair or over a counter, we're collapsing into the digestive organs. They aren't able to function at their highest capacity. We're collapsed into the lungs. They are not able to take that deep, full breath. The diaphragm can't lift and fall the way it's intended to. So if for nothing else, we want to have good posture so that we can digest, feel good, get rid of maybe some things like irritable bowel, GERD, reflux, things like that. Oxygenate our blood and just feel good all over. So what I just want to share with you some thoughts that if you've had a long day, sitting in your chair, at a desk, at a counter, even if you've been traveling, so this can work for things in our personal life as well. The areas that we hear most about when I'm teaching classes is my low back hurts, mid back, or my neck and shoulders. So these are just a few very simple stretches that you can do at home and really kind of get in touch with what's going on in your body. So throughout the day, we're struggling with gravity all day long. It's fighting us. We're trying to stay upright, but it wants to collapse us down. So coming to the floor is just a great way to really let yourself have some release and let gravity work in your favor for a change. So find your way down to the floor safely, carefully, and then even lowering yourself. Just being careful. You can use your legs and kind of walk yourself down. And usually it's best to find our way to the floor with our knees bent. That just lets some of that strain in the low back come out. So if we fully extend our legs, you can see how that might put an excessive pull on my low back. So I'd suggest you explore and find out what works best for you, but try both and see. So typically though, knees bent is going to probably take some of that strain off your low back. You already have strain, you don't need to add more. So once we lay down, just take a few minutes to really let yourself arrive, okay? Give yourself a few moments to just settle in. And I like to even close my eyes when I do that. It just helps me get better connected to the sensations and the feelings that I'm having in my body. So we can even take a little journey and notice, how does my low back feel? Does it feel tight on one side versus the other, upper or lower area? How are my ribs resting on the mat? Can I allow them to be just a little bit more comfortable if I adjust and move a little bit more? How are my shoulder blades? They're big flat bones. Is there any corners or points that are poking or digging into the mat or the floor? See if you can tuck them under you and flatten them out as much as possible. And maybe laying with your palms facing up will give you the ability to let those shoulders really roll open and back versus that rounded forward that we have through so much of our day. So just give yourself a few moments to arrive here. And if you're doing this at home with me, then maybe you'll have the time. If you're watching this at work, then you're just going to have to kind of commit some of this to memory. But just a few breaths to breathe. Let the body really open up and let gravity work in its favor. To release any strain in the low back, then we can just pick up our knees and start to rock just the pelvis. That's different from rocking our whole back up and down. This is the upper part of the body is staying still. We're letting our legs move the pelvis. And what that does is when that picks the pelvis up, it lengthens the muscles on the low back, and gives you a little stretch, all right? So just a gentle little rocking. And then if we want even a little more, take our arms, straighten them out, let the pelvis come back down so that that sacrum, that triangle bone that I showed you, we can just take our hands and use our legs to make little circles and massage that whole area, the SI area, where the sacrum comes into the iliac crests of the pelvis. And just doing that a couple times in each direction, okay? So some gentle, easy massages. And then you can release your feet back down to the floor. We can take our arms back out to the side and just let our knees drift over to one side. And as we do that, sometimes the upper body will pull off of the mat, or the side we're twisting to, that shoulder blade will get a little bit jammed up. So we can lift that up and kind of pull those shoulder blades apart again, flatten them out, give your upper body some nice alignment, and let your knees go the other side. If you want to bring your neck in, you can turn your head in the opposite direction, so you have your whole spine in a really nice supported twist. And just hang out there for a few breaths. And then to come out safely, bring our head back to center, realign the upper part of the spine, pull our belly in and up a little bit so that we can bring our legs back to center. Take a nice deep breath in, straighten ourselves out if we got a little crooked. And then on our exhale, let our legs drift over to the other side. And again, if our shoulders get bunched up, pull them apart. Turn our head in the opposite directions. Just give ourselves a few moments here. Some nice deep breaths. All right, so we're doing this short for the video. Head coming back to center, pull the belly in and up. Our legs come back to center. And after a twist like that, sometimes it's nice to just kind of reset our spine or realign those muscles. So maybe hug your knees back in after you've done some twists. And then finally, for the neck and the shoulders, I'm going to sit up for this here. And we can bring in either our little pillow that we have, or we have our towel. And we're going to think about, we just want to fill the space. So we want to fill the space from the floor to fully support our neck. And just let the muscles on our neck really have the opportunity, with some support, to be released. And it might feel good here to even just nice and easy, rock your head side to side. You have it fully supported, so we don't have to worry that there should be any unnecessary strain. And the bonus is that little extra support gives you a massage too. So most of our muscles run this way on the neck. So when we're turning our head side to side, we're working against those fibers and giving them a really nice massage and release. All right, so I hope that throughout some of these options, sitting, standing, on the floor, with some of the tools or without them, we've given you some ideas on ways to help to bring good posture and alignment into your day and into your life for a healthier body. Thank you for joining us.